All right, let's talk about pricing. Today, we're going to challenge one of the most common and, frankly, most dangerous beliefs in the business world. It's a huge mistake that our source material argues is just crippling a company's chances of ever being truly successful. So, I'm going to ask you a question straight up. Is your pricing strategy actually killing your business? I know it's a tough thought, but the reality is the dangers of underpricing are massively underestimated, and they can be fatal. Okay, here's how we're going to break it all down. We're going to walk through 5 key ideas. We'll start with something called the pricing trap, which so many businesses fall right into. Then we'll get into the real dangers of trying to be the cheapest option. After that, we'll introduce a much better way, smart pricing, and completely flip the script on how you should set your prices. And we'll end with a pretty direct challenge for you to think about. So first up, the pricing trap. And look, this isn't some obscure problem that only affects a few companies. We're talking about one of the most common and critical mistakes a business can possibly make. The heart of this trap is simple: pricing too low. This isn't just a tiny miscalculation on a spreadsheet. No, it's a massive strategic failure that you see everywhere, from tiny startups just getting off the ground to big established companies that should know better. And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, it's staggering. In a place like the UK, a whopping 99% of all businesses are small to medium-sized. These are the companies driving the economy, creating jobs, and yet they are the ones most likely to fall into this exact trap. Okay, so what actually happens when you fall into that trap? Well, you find yourself in what the book's Foreword calls a race to the bottom. It's this crazy competition where the only thing that matters is being cheaper than the next guy, not better. And this quote from David Sainsbury just nails it. It perfectly lays out the 2 choices you have. You can either get stuck in that downward spiral, cutting costs and slashing prices, or you can aim higher. You can innovate and create something so good that customers are actually happy to pay more for it. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the 2 different cultures these paths create. A low-price culture that's all about just surviving. It forces you to cut corners, it kills your cash flow, and your best employees, they leave. But a smart price culture that's built for growth, it actually creates extra cash that you can pour into innovation, attract amazing talent, and keep reinvesting in making your business better. It's a whole different ballgame. So that brings us to the solution: smart pricing. And it's really important we're clear on this. This is not about being greedy or ripping off your customers. It's about being strategic. So, what is smart pricing? Well, think of it as a tool you use to build a stronger, healthier company. The whole point is to generate an economic surplus, extra capital, that you can then use to invest back into your business, your people, and your products. And where does all that extra money go? Well, that's the beautiful part. It creates this amazing positive cycle. It funds better products, it lets you pay higher salaries so you can hire and keep great people, it pays for better training, and all of that comes together to create way more value for your customers. Everybody wins. Now, to really get this, we have to tear down the old way of thinking. We've got to confront the flawed default formula that almost every business uses to set their prices. Seriously, just think about it for a second. If someone asked you to set a price for something right now, what's the first thing you do? For most of us, the instinct is to look at our own costs. And that leads to this, the classic cost-plus model. You figure out your costs, tack on a profit margin you'd like to make, and there you go. You've got a price. It feels safe, it feels logical. It's what pretty much everyone does. But here's the kicker. According to our source material, this is just wrong. Fundamentally wrong. It chains your price to your own internal numbers, not to what your product is actually worth to the customer out there in the real world. That kind of thinking is a trap. So here's the big paradigm shift. This is the whole point. You have to stop starting with your costs and start with your customer. Your price should be a direct reflection of the value you deliver, the problem you solve, the feeling you create, the benefit you provide. That's what determines the price. Which brings us to our final section, and a little thought experiment that really gets to the heart of everything we've been talking about. It's a direct challenge to how you think about your own business. Just let that sink in for a moment. What if you doubled your price tomorrow? What would have to be true about your product, about your service, about the value you provide to make that price feel like a bargain? See, a question like that forces you to stop thinking about small incremental tweaks and start thinking about creating transformative value. And I want to leave you with this one last powerful idea. We're all so terrified of being too expensive. But the real danger,
the one that really strangles your growth and innovation, is often being too cheap. So what could your business become if you finally stopped fighting that race to the bottom and started pricing for a race to the top?